Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney Kneller, and today I'm here to talk to you about the cost-benefit analysis report that I prepared for you as stakeholders of this decision regarding the state of the Veterans Affairs, or VA's electronic health record system. For our agenda today, we'll discuss the background and importance of the CBA report, followed by our analysis that includes assumptions, methodology, the set of outlined costs and benefits, as well as monetized net present values of each. And then we'll close out with our recommendation for this decision. All right, we'll start with a simple background here and present the two options for the CBA. Which include option 1, where the VA continues its commercial EHR implementation, as well as option 2, where the VA reverts to the status quo of utilizing its homegrown EHR system called Vista. So some of the background that we're going to dive into here is the importance of this decision, some report logistics, as well as the VA infrastructure logistics, and then who will be in standing. So this decision is very important to analyze because it impacts U.S. veteran healthcare, taxpayers, and other pertinent stakeholders. And really, overall, the goal of the CBA is going to be to determine the costs versus benefits of the VA's decision to purchase the commercial EHR system and establish those net present values to equip you as stakeholders with this data as you continue to evaluate the situation. Important to know some of the backgrounds of this report. So since this is a decision that has already taken place and the implementation is still ongoing, the CBA for this specific situation will be a medias res CBA or post-decision CBA. So this decision was initially made due to the increased benefits that a commercial EHR would bring to military members and veterans. It offers a lot of promise for innovative technology. So it was certainly a option that the Veterans Affairs wanted to weigh. Additionally, the entire length of the VA implementation is projected to be 11 years. However, the CBA report begins to analyze the project at the beginning of year 5, which means it will evaluate across 7 years total. So VA logistics, to better understand this implementation project, it is important to understand the structure of the VA project overall. So for starters, one of the main reasons for selecting a move to the commercial EHR system at the VA is to increase veteran interoperability and access. There are over 100 instances of their current system, Vista, that do not integrate with each other. So what this means is that veterans are oftentimes needing to carry around about 10 inches of healthcare paperwork at any given time that often lead to medical errors when it's not readily available in the system for clinicians. Additionally, the VA's Vista system is a very aged system that supports a code that not many individuals have experience with any longer. So the staffing is growing quite expensive. There are also currently 1,298 healthcare facilities that the Veterans Health Administration is responsible for rendering care from, staffed by over 370,000 professionals. So the benefits and costs in this report do get quite large. And then the rollout of the implementations across various facilities are staggered, so it does not occur all in bulk. How it more so aligns over each year. So these are some special considerations that will be taken into account when monetizing the impacts throughout each year. Finally, another essential step in performing a CBA is to decide whose benefits and costs count, or in other words, who has standing. This means determining whose benefits and costs should be included and counted in this decision. So stakeholders at a high level that have standing in this situation are the VA and VHA, or Veterans Health Administration, U.S. Veterans, U.S. Deputy Secretary of Veterans Affairs and of the Defense, the Program Office, and then there are a number of Congress, Senate, and House groups as well that are involved in this project implementation. For our analysis, we'll first review the assumptions, methodology, and key impacts, as well as the discount rate. So assumptions for this project include the fact that there will not be any timeline adjustments that deviate from the 11-year timeline. The system and hardware maintenance will need to continue indefinitely for the life cycle of any EHR system implementation. However, those long-term costs and benefits are outside the scope and timeline of the CBA. This analysis assumes that CMS will not change its penalty amount for noncompliance in the next 7 years. And then finally, this analysis assumes that the scholarly publications and sources that are cited in my research are accurate and reliable. However, a sensitivity analysis will be outlined as well to account for a range of possibilities. For the methodology, all impacts are monetized, discounted, and categorized into net present values. And each value is carefully researched and analyzed by utilizing mathematical equations outlined in the appendix of the report on values 1A through 1K. So it will certainly be important to review that report as well as this presentation. Each of these values did utilize various strategies, which include willingness to pay, or WTP, published scholarly research, historical values cited in past VA EHR implementation projects, and then other values cited by government agencies as well. And then the key impacts of the CBA include staffing, IT infrastructure and hardware updates, system and hardware maintenance, training, optimization and efficiency, veteran health outcomes, patient safety, investment into VISTA, federal contracting, compliance to regulatory measures, control of the system, and clinician time, which will all be broken out into costs and benefits here in the next couple of slides. Additionally, a discount rate of 7% was selected since the VA is a government agency and typically relies on the federal government to determine the discount rate. And as a default, the Federal Office of Management and Budget states that a real discount rate of 7% should be utilized. All right, so this is the analysis or the monetized net present values at the bottom here for option 1. To arrive at the net present values, or NPV, per year, I monetized each cost and benefit for each year and then calculated the present value of each year. So the present values of costs were subtracted from those present values of benefits for each option, which resulted in the net present values presented in this table at the bottom, as well as for the next slide. So for option 1, we can see that each year the net present value increases. It starts off at about 3 trillion all the way up to 6 trillion by year 11, displaying a very high net present value, which indicates a positive decision. And then you can see all the costs and benefits parsed out here. You can I'll certainly send this slide out afterwards as well, or this presentation, so that you can review these on your own time more in depth. All right, and then on the other hand, option 2 results in negative values around negative 6 trillion each year, roughly, once each cost and benefit is analyzed. So I understand this is a lot of data on each table, like I said, but it's important to take time after this presentation to review this complex data for further understanding. I think the biggest call out I have here is that this is such a negative value and this is such a positive value during each year that it's apparent that that this is going to be our positive decision, and this will more so be our negative decision for option 2. All right. Certainly important to call out some biases, uncertainties, and sensitivity analysis as well. The potential biases that could impact my CBA project include effect heuristic bias, confirmation bias, optimism bias, and scientific research. So the effect heuristic bias is one that impacts decision-making by relying on subjective emotion, and then confirmation bias looks to confirm information that already fits one's beliefs. And then finally, optimism bias tends to overestimate the likelihood of experiencing positive events and underestimating negative events. So in each case here, I think it's going to be really important to look back on the objective data and ensure that multiple sources were cited in this report, and that those are all called out within the appendix at a pretty granular level, if you'd like to review those. Additionally, risks and uncertainties. Oh, I'm sorry. And then one more bias. So in this case, the published scientific research that I cited may have a bias to display statistically significant results, and does have the potential to overestimate positive predictions, especially in healthcare. Additionally, risks and uncertainties are factors that influence decisions. So risks really take account of benefits and costs that have specific contingencies to which one is able to assign a probability, while uncertainties take account of an uncertain outcome in which a precise quantity description is not available. So I researched the project items here, and they didn't necessarily have a statistical value assigned to them. So as such, these are more so uncertainties. For starters, the VA has complex contracts that can lead to increased gaps between task orders and the contract and financial risk realm of things with funding. Ultimately, would it be impacting the timeline of the project? Additionally, there may be an increase in staff turnover during the EHR implementation. However, it's challenging to determine the exact amount. And then other values that are uncertainties could include contractual risks of evolving requirements with such a long implementation timeline, and then technical uncertainties due to it being the first commercial EHR utilized at this scale. So here at the bottom left-hand side, to account for these possible biases or uncertainties, there are a couple strategies that have been utilized to minimize the risk of such errors. First, it's important to note that I pulled in several resources to fact check the values I placed across the costs and benefits as outlined in the appendix. By utilizing objective, credible, and informed research conducted by reliable agencies, there is a decreased chance of errors and elimination of personal biases that may be influencing the options weighed. Additionally, the historical VA EHR implementation contracts are published on the web for public consumption, so I utilize several of those values in my research to ensure accuracy. Secondly, I have performed a sensitivity analysis here. So by comparing a discount rate of plus and minus 2% to my defined CBA discount rate of 7%. This allows for a broader range of the net present value rather than trying to target a single value per year. So after recalculating that net present value with a discount rate of 5 to 9% against the present value costs and present value benefits for options 1 and 2, I arrived at the following outcomes displayed on this slide. So it's important to note here, these are still all in very negative numbers, while these are very positive numbers. All right, so based on this research, my recommendation is to continue the commercial EHR implementation across VA facilities, otherwise known as option 1. With a drastic difference in the net present value range between options 1 and 2 presented, it's evident that option 1 is the recommended course of action. The data presented throughout this report based on willingness to pay values, published scholarly research, historical values, and other values cited by government agencies have informed the net present values presented in both options during the CBA project. In option 1, all values were well above 0, and the fact that they're positive informs us that the project should be continued. On the other hand, option 2 is well into the negative values, so this would be a poor decision to proceed with. Even with the potential biases and uncertainties present, it's still highly unlikely that it would be large enough to change or to alter the recommendation presented in this report, as displayed by that sensitivity analysis. So with that said, option 1 is the recommended course of action to proceed with, and the VA should continue its implementation of the commercial EHR. Thank you so much for joining today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.